children, file 24054. All right, we are running a little bit late this morning. We discovered that one of the parents was arrested last night. We've got a hold of the jail, confirmed that through an officer that logged off just before we got online that she does not wish to participate in today's hearing, which is our initial disposition hearing. So that being said, let's get started with the rest of our appearances, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Nicole Underwood, legal guardian ad litem for the children.
Ms. Stasia Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Pelham.
Chelsea Pelham, foster care worker.
Michael McFarland, representing father. Please introduce yourself. Christopher Ford, father.
Katerina Dumont, representing mother for.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas, your microphone's a little quiet this morning. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And then whenever you're ready, Ms. Underwood, we'll look for your reports.
Yes, I was able to make contact with 6 of the 7 children over the last reporting period. The one child, Juan Casares Jr., I was unable to make contact with because the phone number and the petition is not working. So I did get a number from Ms. Pelham this morning. I'm hoping that that one is a good number. I met with Kai, the youngest child, at his foster placement on Friday. Sat there and hung out with him for quite a while. He's an adorable little guy, very happy, very content. When the foster family did first take placement, they had noticed that Kai couldn't sit up, couldn't really do much of anything. He's now sitting on his own. They're able to get him into occupational and speech therapy as well. They are waiting for physical therapy. They're in a wait list, and I believe they have early on coming as well. So he's really thriving. They're working to figure out if he has a history of any type of medical care or vaccines. That way they're not doubling up on those, but he's doing really well where he's at, making a lot of progress in a very short time. I met with Wyatt at the Boys and Girls Club. He seems to be doing very well. He says that that's his happy place and that he's got a life there is what he said. So he's really happy. He's doing well there. He said that he's happy at Dad's. They've got a place that they were able to secure for 90 days, which is very good. So the kids all have somewhere to stay. I met with the other four children at their house with Dad, and they all seem to be doing well. The younger 2 are full of energy and just excited to have visitors over, so it was nice to talk with them. And then the 2 girls, Billy Ann and Lila, were also doing very well. So I think that their needs are being met in the places that they are with respect to the 6 out of 7 that I was able to meet with. And hopefully I can get in touch with Juan Casares so that I can meet with him as well.
Thank you. Testimony this morning, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Honor. If Ms. Pelham can be sworn in.
Stand.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Pelham, you are the foster care worker for this family, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you provided on or about April 19th a court report with a few attachments.
I did.
Included is an exhibit of like an alcohol swab with a baby bottle.
Yes.
Case service plan for mom and dad, then the medical records from U of M and a proof of service. Have you circulated any other documents since you've filed this report?
Yes. The only other documents that I've actually circulated was the 5598 for Native American Heritage being sent out.
Okay. Let's see. Judge, I just want to make sure that everyone has received those documents, including the Native American search history.
Looks like I have those, including a Native American search set of documents that came in April 24th. Ms. Underwood, did you receive the initial court report as well as that supplemental edition?
I did receive the court report. I did not receive the other document. I can get you that. I apologize. I forgot to send them to her. I did not realize she was the LGAO on this. That's no problem.
Mr. McFarland?
Acknowledge.
Mr. Mark?
Your Honor, I didn't receive any documents, but Ms. Underwood did forward them to me, and then I can give Chelsea my email, so she has it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Judge. And Ms. Palm, are there any updates or modifications that need to be made to any of the documents that you've provided to the court today?
The only update is I did do a drug screen on Miss Four, and the results came in late last week, and she did test positive for amphetamines, cocaine, THC, and methamphetamines.
And do you recall about when you took that drug screen from her?
I want to say it was probably around April 18th. It was the day after she got out of jail.
Okay. And, okay, are there any other drug screens that she's completed?
No, I did refer her to Lenawee Development Corp and got her on color. She is the color blue. However, I do not believe that she has followed through with any drug screens through LBC.
Okay. Currently, what is the permanency goal for the children?
Reunification.
Okay. And 5 of the children are with their father, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the child that is with Mr. Casares, have you been able to have contact with that child?
Yes, I have had contact with him a couple of times in the past month.
Okay. And I'm sure this is something you've already discussed with Ms. Underwood, but you're able to provide updated information to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. In your report, you indicate that there are DNA referrals sent out for the youngest child. Do you have any updates on that, whether they have been scheduled?
I do not. I did just reach out again to the woman who's scheduling them, but I have not heard back yet.
Okay, thank you. As it relates to the goal of reunification for Ms. Four, do you believe that the case service plan as presented today would support that goal?
I do.
And it adequately addresses the barriers to reunification at this time?
Yes.
And on that point, what would you say the substantial risk of harm is to the children if they were to be returned to her care and custody today?
At this time, she is in jail, so she could not take care and custody of the children. She does not have housing, transportation, and she still is struggling with substance abuse.
Okay. And during this period of time, has Mr. Four, or Ms. Four for that matter, engaged in any voluntary services to address the conditions that cause the children to come into care?
Yes, they both have.
Okay. And can you just briefly highlight what Mr. Four has done?
Yeah, Mr. Ford has participated completely with us. He is working with a program called Families First. It's an intensive home-based service that comes to his house a couple times a week that can help him do whatever he needs to do. And he has been in the process of getting all the kiddos into the pediatrician as well. And we're working on counseling.
Great. Your report indicated, and I don't know if I read this correctly, have all of the children then gone through a CTAC or that's been referred?
That's been referred.
Okay. And then what are some of the services that Ms. Four has engaged in? She
has, in the car with me, she did call CMH and she did do a substance abuse intake assessment and she got referred to McCullough Vargas. And I know that she went one day. And she also did like a mental health intake through CMH and she did have an appointment on last Thursday at 9:30. I do not know if she went to it though. And as it relates to those barriers that you mentioned earlier, like transportation, are you able to assist her in that area as well? Yes, I have been picking her up, driving her places. I took her to housing help and I've offered to take her anywhere she really needs to go. Were you able to discuss the fact that that bottle, which was included in this court report, actually, can you just tell me why that bottle alcohol screen was included in this court report? That was included in this court report because we tested it after our last court hearing, so we figured it should be put into the court report. Okay. And can you tell us a little history about that bottle? Like when did
Why was it in your possession? What made you
Yes.
want to test that?
So upon removal of Kai from Brittany, she provided one bottle to me and the CPS worker. The CPS worker did smell that bottle and it smelled strongly of alcohol. We did not use that bottle to feed him. However, because of that, we did feel it was necessary that Kai get drug screened as well as that bottle get tested as much as possible. So we did use an at-home like alcohol swab in the nipple of the bottle, and it did come back positive for alcohol.
But the U of M reports indicate that the child did not necessarily test positive for alcohol in any urine screens other than the amphetamines and cocaine, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything about the children that you'd like to highlight to the court for the court today?
The only thing is I've spoken a lot with the older two kiddos, Billy and Wyatt, and they both are not at a place right now where they want to see their mom. They feel traumatized by her. And I do know, or I've been informed, allegations of Brittany continuing to try to reach out to Billy and contact her in any way possible that she can.
Would you recommend that a therapist weigh in on parenting time right now as it relates to those two older children?
I think it would likely be beneficial, yes.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, do you know why Miss Four was arrested last night?
All I'm aware of, there was a probation violation for the substance abuse. I heard allegations of she was potentially trafficking an 18-year-old and making her have sex with men and making her take drugs. That's what I was informed.
Okay. But you don't have any proof of that, and you're not necessarily saying that's what happened. You're just saying this is what you've been told so far.
Yes, those were the allegations I was told.
Okay. And the original petition includes concerns about sex trafficking as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe that parenting time with any of the children would pose a risk of harm to them?
At this point, due to Ms. Four's history of not being very honest with me, I think that it could be concerning for parenting time. I know I've supervised a couple parenting times and she's not super focused on parenting during those parenting times. She's kind of more focused on talking to me, talking about the case. When we did have a visit with all 7 children, and well, not all 7, there's about 5 because Billy and Wyatt didn't want to participate. She really did.
Refrain from the children's names.
Yeah, if we could.
I apologize, sorry. She did definitely parentify LF.
Okay. And that means that LF was the one who was responsible sort of for parenting the other children?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And do you have any knowledge of any updates from like the child custody case? I believe that Mr. Four and Ms. Ford had one from Hillsdale County, if I'm not mistaken.
I do not have any updates. I do not believe Chris has been able to make it to Hillsdale. He's struggling with transportation as well.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much for that update. Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Pelham and would move to admit the court report with the including the ICWA documentation. Thank you.
No objections.
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you. They are received. Questions, Ms. Dumont?
Ms. Pelham, you indicated that Ms. Four's main issues are substance abuse and housing. Do you believe that an inpatient treatment program would be beneficial for her?
I do.
Okay, and would you be able to help her get into that?
I would be happy to help her.
Okay, and while she's in an inpatient, would she be able to have supervised parenting time as well if they offered Zoom or?
Yeah.
You'd be okay
Yep.
with that?
As long as it's okay with the facility, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, and if she is released and wants parenting time, do you believe that if that parenting time is supervised and she's drug screened before, that it would alleviate any of the concerns?
It could. It's not going to alleviate the situations where she's parentifying her children, but it could help.
Okay.
Her children.
Okay, and she did make some strides to try and get in with CMH?
Yes.
Okay, and you know, she's not here for me to be able to speak with, but do you do you believe that based on your recommendations that she will comply with like what you recommend to her?
She made it very clear that she was okay with whatever I recommended and was willing to do the work.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Mr. McFarland?
Thank you. My understanding is the elementary school was quite incredible in that they were able to find temporary 3-month transitional housing for my client
Yes.
children, right?
Yep.
Uh, My clients also discussed with you mother reaching out, contacting him, also through others trying to reach him about the children, correct?
Correct.
Would you support her not having any contact with my client except through you?
I have actually asked her to do that. So yes, I would be very supportive of that.
That was in an order, you would support that?
I would. Thank you.
I know my client has quite a lot on his case service plan. If we were to prioritize for him, what would that priority, you can give us maybe some top 3 or whatever.
I would say one of the top ones is a psychological. He has been referred and scheduled for that, I believe, in July. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head. And then just some counseling for him. He's had a rough life as well. And just continuing to stay sober.
Counseling, has that been scheduled?
We've talked about it. I don't know that he has moved forward with getting that scheduled yet.
Okay, if he needs assistance in doing that, he can reach out to you, am I correct?
He can.
Nothing further, thank you.
Ms. Underwood, any questions?
Yes, this wasn't brought up in the initial petition or in any updates, but what was the attendance like for the oldest child, BF, as far as attending school prior to the course becoming involved?
Not good. She was doing mostly online schooling, and I don't believe that was really followed through with either.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to pull or request any of the attendance records for the children?
I have not yet, but I can.
Would it be reasonable to add into the case service plan for both parties that the children do attend school regularly?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
You mentioned LF being parentified by mom. Can you tell me the age of her age?
10.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No.
No, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We return to your seat. Any other witnesses, Ms. Thomas?
No, Judge, thank you.
Ms. Dumont?
No, thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
No witnesses.
Ms. Underwood?
No witnesses.
All right, comments in closing, Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Judge. At this time, we are just asking the court to adopt the case service plan. I think that it would be appropriate to add in that each parent would ensure that the children go to school, provided that those children are healthy. Additionally, would ask the court to consider parenting time for mom right now. It sounds like the 2 older children are really struggling with their relationship with her, and I think it might be appropriate for a therapist to weigh in on that. Additionally, given some of these behavioral concerns during parenting time, such as the parentification, we're not sure if she's sober. I think it would be appropriate to add in some safeguards there, and I would ask the LJL to weigh in on that, whether that is drug screens for parenting time and needing to be sober. And I know that we can't necessarily withhold parenting time unless there's the risk of harm to the children's physical health or mental well-being. I think that sort of putting the children on the back burner and only talking to the supervisor about the case does pose a risk of harm to their mental well-being, and just sort of adds in to the conditions that cause the children to come into care. With that, though, we would ask the court to enter the parents into the case service plan and set it for a standard 90-day review. Thank you.
Ms. Dumont, any comments?
Your Honor, my client is not here, so I don't know her position, but I did meet with her previously when she was incarcerated with regards to the last hearing we had. And she did advise me she wanted to get started with all of the recommendations. She was in contact with Ms. Pelham while she was in jail. I think now for issues with regards to substance abuse, if we can work on getting her inpatient, and maybe the criminal end of that, we'll work on that as well. I think that's her best bet at this point, but I do know that she's serious about reunifying with her children.
Mr. McFarland?
Your Honor, my client would support mother being drug tested regarding her history and what we've heard about where she is right now. He's concerned about the mental health of the children if their mother is viewed in an intoxicated state. He would also like to have a no contact order that she not reach out to him, as she's been doing, or communicate through others to have visits with the children outside of the scope of the court ordered parenting time. Without being ordered, my client has already jump-started his case, so it's a good thing to have. He's cooperative. It's amazing that the school system was able to help him find transitional housing for 3 months, which is often a real big hurdle. So one hurdle is down, and I think we're on the right course. Thank you.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes, Your Honor, I think that I would also support drug testing prior to any visits with mom and the children. I think based on what I have discussed with the oldest 2 children, as well as just the behavior of LF and the things that she was expected to do during her parenting time, I would support maybe suspending that parenting time until further therapy or some type of recommendation from a therapist could happen to support the needs of those oldest 3 children. As to the younger children, I think at this point, if the visits are supervised and are monitored, as well as there's drug testing beforehand, I don't have any issues, I think, with that continuing. But if there are any additional issues that happen, I would support the department's position on making any adjustments needed in that area. But other than that, again, I think the children are doing well and where they're at, what's going on so far.
Did I hear you say that for parenting time for all 3 of the oldest children, that is effectively that should be, I mean, basically either at the discretion of the children or at the recommendation of a therapist, or just for the oldest?
The older 2, I think, have already made their position pretty clear, and I do think that they'll continue therapy or some type of support in that regard is important. But with LF, the 10-year-old, just based on behavior after visits, as well as what's expected of her during the visits, I would recommend that a therapist help weigh in on parenting time moving forward. She's at a tender age and been put in a tough spot. I don't want her to feel pulled in multiple directions at this point. And I think some therapy and some support prior to any additional visits is probably a good idea.
All right, well, the court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review hearing. Thank you, Ms. Pelham, for all of your efforts. They are certainly reasonable efforts, but they are also active efforts, offering to drive a parent around, making sure that you met with both parents and got their weigh in on the case services plan is very important. And thank you for paying attention to those pieces. Also find Ms. Underwood to be in satisfaction with her obligations as guardian ad litem. Once you're able to meet with that final child, if you could supply us all with a little affidavit on your visit, there's a form for that out there. I'm sure Mr. McFarland or somebody could direct you to that. Just a little indication that lets us know that you were able to meet with that child would be great. As it relates to the case services plan, I have reviewed that as well. I do think it's appropriate. It's targeted the specific areas that both parents are facing challenges in. I do think it's also appropriate to amend it to include that education piece, but I'll leave that to Ms. Pelham if you could maybe do that between now and when we come back for our next review hearing. So you can build that in a way that is sustainable for both parents. I know that Mr. Ford is still sort of in flux. We've got housing set up, sounds like for temporary purposes, but I'll let you work through that education piece with him. And hopefully with Ms. Ford, if she's able to overcome some of the challenges that keep getting her landed in jail, frankly. I also want to say that it seems to me where I'm sitting that Mr. Ford is going to need some support. That a lot of the issues that came that brought him into care included the fact that there's 5 of these kids, right? So it may not be a sustainable situation, at least at this moment, to ask him to provide everything that these 5 kids need, especially considering the trauma that the kids have been through, his own challenges that he has to work through. So I would encourage you to continue working with him to find friends and family to help provide respite care. And even if that means looking at the department's resources for that, I would appreciate any efforts you could do on his behalf. Of course. As it relates to Ms. Ford, clearly her challenges remove her from the situation today. Unfortunately, she's not here to speak for herself on what those are currently. She's chosen not to do that, which is not a great sign. What it also means is Mr. Ford is going to have to really make sure that whatever plan he gets in place is sustainable for the long term, at least at this moment. Children were recently removed in April, but to have her continuing to struggle with substances and some of the other challenges that she has is not a good sign, frankly. So the children are in the safest and least restrictive placements available to them at this time. That includes 5 of the children with their father, Christopher Ford, and 1 of the children with his father, and then of course the youngest child in foster care. All of the needs of the children are being met. Those are the safest and least restrictive circumstances for these children at this time, for many of the reasons that were explored on record today. That will be the order of the court moving forward as well. I will include as requested that Ms. Brittany Ford not have any contact with Christopher Ford, at least during this next reporting period, and specifically about parenting time. She needs to respect what's in place for these children and respect the oldest 2 children in their request to suspend that parenting time, at least for now. I also agree that until we have a recommendation as it relates to the 3rd child, that parenting time for her should also be, I'm going to make it at the discretion of the department at this point, understanding that I know that our next reporting period is going to be 3 months, but I would like, before we give any parenting time to Brittany with this child, that we have a counselor in place. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that we don't have a counselor in place yet. So do you have the trauma assessment scheduled by any chance?
They're not scheduled yet, it's just referred.
Do we know how far out those are getting scheduled?
Normally they're about a couple of months.
Yes, that was my concern. All right, so maybe you could check with Renee Moore or somebody else that could just give us a quick assessment as it relates to B, W, and LF on parenting time. Try to get that done. I would hope we could get that done within at least the next 30 days. So, and after that, we'll make the parenting time at the discretion of the HHS. So how I'm going to phrase it in the order is that parenting time with those 2 children is going to be suspended for the next 30 days or until we get a recommendation from a counselor, whichever comes first. And then parenting time for those 3 children will be at the discretion of DHHS. Of course, the rest of the children may have their supervised parenting time as available and as she is available to them. I don't have those same indications of a potential risk of harm to the mental health of the younger children at this point in time, although I can certainly see how it would be a risk. So prioritizing the assessment on the first 3 children, of course, we'll still be looking for an assessment, whether that comes out of the trauma assessment on parenting time or whatever counselor, to help guide them moving forward. I also agree that drug testing prior to visits is appropriate. Clearly, Ms. Ford is struggling to control her impulsivity, and much of that, I'm sure, can be attributed to that drug use, and it is seems to be affecting her parenting time, or at least creating a barrier to her productively using her parenting time. So I agree, and that will be a requirement prior to any parenting time. And if there's any signs of active intoxication, I would expect you to terminate that as immediate. I think that's it, with the exception that we have to get you a review date in 3 months. July for those at this point.
Your Honor, is it possible to add something about mom not trying to directly contact the oldest, because I believe she has her own devices, so that mom not directly contact, I guess, any of the minor children directly?
So outside of DHH sanctioned contact, no contact outside of that. Judge, any thoughts, objections on that point, counselors?
We support that.
Your Honor, I can't support or deny. I don't know what my client.
Very good. And if you do get a chance to talk with her and she would like you to bring that to my attention, feel free to file something in the meantime. Or of course, to talk to your fellow counselors. All right, I will add that language in the order as well. Okay. I have the 11 o'clock, 9 or 11 on Monday, July 15th. Any preference on 9 or 11?
Preference, yeah.
Let's go ahead and schedule it for 11 a.m. on Monday, July 15th. That will be our next review. Unless there's any questions.
When we're off the record, my client would like to provide a new address to the court.
Judge.
Any other questions?